How's it going, everyone? Welcome to Civ House. I'm Connor, he's Rob, and today we are talking about leaders that we think are underrated in Civ 7. So, really excited to talk about this today, and I think a lot of why we want to talk about this today is because there has been kind of a growing sentiment about what heroes are higher tiered. You know, Rob and I just released a tier list on this channel. Some of you liked, some of you didn't. Everyone has their own thoughts right now in the community about what's good and what's not based on people feeling like production's really strong, people feeling like towns are a little weaker compared to cities. Now with the new patch, there's even some shifts compared to that. So a whole lot of different sentiments out there. You also get to watch some beautiful Pocket Cutie gameplay with the Mississippians that I just put up on the channel recently. So while that's playing, Rob, we're talking about underrated leaders today. Any thoughts on kind of playing leaders that are not optimized, or maybe not the kind of mainstream leaders that are considered good in your mind?
Well, this is for all of you people out there who have been claiming that we only rank the best leaders as the easiest ones to play. So we thought, why not do some of the tougher ones, to be honest with you? And, I do think that there is a balance to that, right? Like, there are some times where, there are going to be some leaders that it's like you don't want to play Pakakudi intentionally away from the mountains.
Right.
There are things you have to lean into. And I think there are leaders on here specifically who need a little bit of love just in terms of the way that they are perceived, I think. Not just by us, but I think other people. There have been, some comments that have maybe even helped us kind of maybe take another look at some of these leaders, even in the last week or so since we did that tier list. So I'm excited about this. And yeah, I mean, Connor, you can kick us off, I'm assuming, right?
I'm happy to. Yeah, I'll start off, and I'll kind of, last thing I'll say on this as well is, I'm also just the kind of player, like this kind of topic is something that I love because I generally really don't like just finding what's most meta and playing it. There's just not really a whole lot of satisfaction in that to me. That's why I just put out the Pocket Cutie video, because I'm like, this leader feels bad, but I think there are avenues that you can make them effective. That is the challenge that I find most enjoyable in games like Civ, that you kind of have to twist your brain a little bit to make work. It's fun to play Maya, it's fun to play Harriet Tubman, don't get me wrong, but let's talk about something that's a little less optimized. So I will start with mine, and I don't have the exact abilities up, so I'm doing some of this from memory, but Himiko, Queen of Wa, is going to be my pick for most underrated leader, and I'm going to talk a little bit about why. So from off the top of my head, she has ability to, I think, support endeavors for free, and she gets basically science for each alliance or friendship that you are in with other leaders. So the way you play Himiko is to be very friendly with everyone and use that to absolutely pump up your science. The reason I think she's underrated, she also unlocks Meiji Japan in the modern age, which is really strong as well. I think Meiji is very, very good in the modern age. So that's
and she has a unique endeavor.
That's right.
Friend of Way.
Yes, that's the one I was forgetting. So why I think she is underrated, honestly, is because of all of the other science options out there on the board. So I don't think people think of Himiko as a science play when they boot up a game of Civ 7, most likely. And this could just be me. This is just my personal opinion, obviously. This is my underrated pick. But I think she can be just as effective as Harriet Tubman, as Confucius, as a lot of these other, Ben Franklin, a lot of these other kind of mainstay science picks that we see a lot right now in the community. I think Himiko is right up there, especially when we're talking about an AI game on Deity. Now, multiplayer, it is going to be a bit more challenging to, people just aren't going to target you with the endeavors. You're never going to get to support them for free. So there's a little bit of an asterisk for this, or just condition that I'm really talking about Deity gameplay or high-level gameplay Deity Immortal, right? So just know that. But I think that Himiko, if you're going to play her, can be a really fun, interesting playstyle. I also really enjoy anything diplomatic in Civ 7, so you'll find me usually playing Tecumseh or Harriet Tubman, or even like a Machiavelli would be a really fun one to play with that kind of same style. I just love the kind of immersion of interacting with other world leaders and kind of the politics at play with that. And right now, all we have in Civ 7 for that are these endeavors and sanctions and things, so if you're going to use that playstyle and also lean into science, you might think Harriet Tubman, which is fair, she's very good. But I think if you're going to play something a little bit more off-meta, I think Himiko, Queen of Wa is a really, really fun playstyle as well. And you can get crazy good science yields from it, especially early on if you're able to meet some people, have those positive interactions. You could play her with like Greece in the Antiquity Age to get the influence to be able to kind of cycle through these endeavors. A lot of different ways you could play her, though.
Yeah.
So yeah, Rob, that's my pick. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think, Queen of Wa was one that I think struggled to really place on our tier list because I think it does depend, right? If you are playing multiplayer, and I think that there are a couple different civs like that, or leaders like this, right? I think Napoleon is one of them as well, where it's just like they're very attackable in terms of, just ignoring what they do. Like if we were doing a multiplayer tier list, like this would be one of the worst leaders because there's just no way that you can fully control if you're just playing against other people, how much they're going to like you or anything like that. And I know you can't really on even a deity game of Civ, your best friend can turn around and backstab you quite quickly still with the way the AI is in this game. But the amount of science that you can get is pretty crazy. I mean, the +4 per age, as a reminder. So you play her all the way through to the modern age, you're stacking insane yields at that point. And along with this as well, right? If you're best friends with everybody, I mean, it's one of the leaders that I feel like you can totally focus on a single victory path and be fine. Because if nobody else is going to attack you, you're going to be okay. If you play with Greece, you're going to have city-states in your back pocket as well, so you don't necessarily have to. You could literally, and maybe this is a challenge, a Himiko Queen of Wa pacifist challenge. No wars. Yeah. Right? And like that would be really cool, and I think that would work with her. So it's an interesting style for sure. I think she's underrated. Probably could get played more. I think a lot of people, especially like with Ada getting added, right, are kind of maybe shifting towards Ada and Confucius still, I think probably on a pretty regular basis. But I think she is strong enough to where you can play her a little more often. And I know that if I ever decide to go a full-on science one, that I might pick her up. I'll just say that.
There's just a wealth of science leaders in this game. I mean, I think the two kind of categories of leaders I feel like there's the most viable options in is science and economic. Maybe military as well. I mean, there are a lot of great pure military leaders. I don't feel like there are just a ton of like pure culture leaders, right? That are really, really strong right now that I think of at least. So again, I think just compared to the competition, a little underrated. But Rob, I know you've got a different one in mind, a different pick. So who's your selection for your most underrated leader, Civ 7?
Yeah, mine's going to be Ibn Battuta. And I really like him just because of the fact that if you guys can't tell on this channel already at this point, I love flexibility. I think that that's one of the best parts about some of the old games. I think it's one of the worst parts about this game, to be honest with you, is the lack of flexibility. But Ibn gives you that. He was basically made to be that. So, you pair him with the right mementos especially, I think he can be really good, right? You're getting those multiple attribute points after you're getting that first civic in each age, which is wild. So you're able to get yourself down some of those trees very, very quickly, which I think is really nice. You're getting that wild card, kind of aspect as well. So when you're doing the age transitions, that's very, very helpful. And then I just think that sight, it's such an interesting way to play the game. Like you're always kind of there. You can see what's going on and you can make those decisions based on that, especially with the, trade maps. Trade maps are one of, I think, the most underrated aspects of the game. It allows it so that you can use your scouts for very different purposes, right? I think it also really helps you kind of get an idea of what's going on in the world in areas that maybe you can't get to. If you decide to go down the economic path, right, with him, which I think is one of the easier ones, that does allow you to figure out where you want to place your trade towns and stuff like that to be able to get your trade flowing. Should you need, him for military, I think as well. This allows you to know where all of the cities are. I know that there were times in my Ibn Battuta gameplay, actually, where I'm getting offered cities by, these other leaders, to end a war that they started, by the way, to be clear. But you
finished.
I did finish. And so they... they're offering me these cities. I'm like, where the hell are these cities? You know what I mean? Like, they're just in the middle of nowhere, but I knew where they were because of my trade maps. So, it's like, I'm not going in blind and just like, well, I guess I'll take this one. I could strategically, be like, okay, well, at least this one's close to this, or this one's close to the coast, so I can kind of move my units around if I need to. Or maybe I just deny it and try to go for a different city. Like, there are a lot of ways where I think trade maps can be very, very useful. It also allows you to meet everybody quicker. I think if they ever do add a United Nations, like Eben's going to be the guy to be able to get you to be the first one to find everybody. There's just so many ways that I think that it can be useful. I mean, not having fog of war in any video game is generally the best thing. I mean, I even think about playing like League of Legends, right? Sight, knowing what's on the map is as important as anything. And I think that that's what makes Eben really, really interesting. And he's got kind of like this network, if you think of, all those different people. Like, I mean, even the spider himself, right? Machiavelli had a network similar to what Eben does end up having. And I think those attribute points, again, really allow you to kind of go wherever you want to. If you want to go science, if you really want to go culture, you can mix him with just about any single civilization and decide to really focus on that. And that's my last part of this that I think makes him super underrated, is that, Connor, like if you're maybe just like, man, I really want to try the Civ path out, but I don't know which leader is going to fit with it throughout the whole, all 3 ages. Eben is going to allow you to do that without fail because he's so easily able to adapt. Especially, I know people maybe don't like to run these all the time, but those mementos that have that plus ability, or that plus attribute within that tree, if you're like, again, if you want to go science, then you just take the attribute points that you get from him, you take the memento for science, I can't remember what it's called, and I think there's one other really good one for science as well that's not ringing for me, but either way, my point is that you add all that up and it really gives you that flexibility to kind of just play however you would like to. Again, the last point I'll say again is that it's just really that you can also just kind of change your path if you need to.
Yeah.
If you're not able to get, the trade going that you would like to in antiquity, okay, no worries. You can pivot very easily as you head into the next age. I think Eben was made for this game, like really, really, really in mind. I think other ones you could kind of place in older Civ games and be okay. I think this guy was made perfectly for this game. And I think he's super underrated. I don't know why more people don't rank him a little higher in their tier list, and I don't know why more people don't take him a little more seriously.
Yeah, I think it's the tendency to want to min-max with everything in this game, and I think that is it's obviously like you can get really optimal things and kind of railroad one victory path and kind of feel the benefits of that with a lot of leaders, and you can't maybe do it quite as much with Eben. But to your point, Rob, I don't think there's any better exploration age leader than Eben, because of your ability to go from one thing in antiquity, feeling like maybe you're behind in exploration, shifting, going to modern with a different approach. He just has a lot of flexibility. I mean, I think that is the kind of calling card of Eben for sure for both of us. He's someone that I haven't played as much. I think I've played like half of an antiquity age game with Eben, so I'm a little inexperienced with him, to be honest. So I don't have a ton to add. But I think that for all the reasons you said, though, he's one that I've always wanted to play. But it's almost like I think I have some of that community hive mind, like, oh, I need to like find the combo to min-max and like find this really unique, interesting thing. So I don't generally gravitate towards Eben sometimes because he does just offer you to play kind of however you want. It'd be really interesting to have a Civ added to kind of like go with him at some point to, just kind of come along and also be this kind of adaptable Civ. Would be interesting to see. But in any case, we'd be curious to hear from you all what you think the most underrated leaders are in this game. There's a plethora of options. It's got a great roster, so a lot of ones we could have talked about here, obviously, and didn't. And this also is subjective, different in everyone else's mind. So let us know in the comments what you think the most underrated leaders are. We think it's Himiko and Eben, but that's just our take. So anyway, thank you all for tuning in, as always. And from our house to yours, we hope you'll join us for one more turn next time here on Civ House. Peace.